Welcome to It's What Our Characters Would Do, the podcast where a neutral good ranger and a chaotic neutral warlock talk about RPGs, roll funny dice, and give away some sweet loot. I'm Bob World Builder.
And I'm Grace World Destroyer.
And today we're talking about Baldur's Gate 3? D&D, the video game? And,
yeah.
And we're giving away a set of pretty cool only crits dice that reminded me of Mind Flayers.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works.
But Grace, how are you feeling today?
I am feeling so good and pumped to talk about this game that I am really enjoying playing.
Yeah. You've been spending a lot of time on this game. I've been able to play the game a little as well.
He gets to play when I'm busy playing real life D&D.
Yeah. Not the only time, but almost the only time. For me to sneak over, just to stealth check over there, make sure Grace is not gonna murder me if I try to play the game myself.
I will murder you if you
save
overwrite my save file.
Do you just get right into it?
Yeah.
Right, you roll, I get to
10 words.
Exactly.
He has exactly 10 words to describe the topic of this podcast.
Baldur's Gate 3 is not the perfect D&D experience.
One more word.
How do I end that?
This is rough. This is not elegant at all.
D&D experience. Well, I get to cut out a lot of the silence there so people don't realize how long I'm hesitating. Is not the perfect D&D experience. What's just like a nice proclamation?
No.
Sure, whatever. Okay. Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it is not the perfect D&D experience.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I don't like, you've never said that. So this isn't like a debate against you or anything.
No.
But when the game first came out, I was like seeing all these videos on YouTube about how like, oh yeah, no one's even gonna like be interested in the D&D VTT now because like they could just play this. And it makes no sense to me now.
No, I mean,
that.
so the battle simulator,
okay.
like the battles,
yeah.
I think they, for the most part, they are really well designed.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's been like 2 so far that I've been like, this is such a, like, just a slog. There's nothing interesting that I can do with the environment. But like, there was one, and this is early game, so I don't think it counts as a spoiler. And if you are worried about spoilers, don't listen to this episode.
Yeah, if you haven't played it all, probably don't listen.
Yeah,
to this.
It's your own fault.
But
if you keep
this is coming out like a month and a half after the game.
After its original release, and then now
probably
the
a
PS5
whole month
release.
after PS5. So,
but
yeah, you should be playing by now.
Like the one fight that I really loved and is just like in my memory forever is killing the Hobgoblin boss in Act 1.
That was so impressive to me as well. That was the first one
because
I
there's a lot of goblins around. It's really hard to kill this guy without anyone noticing. Mm-hmm. But there's rafters. You can go in the rafters.
Yeah.
And I'm playing a rogue. So I shot down in the rafters. I had my 2 like fighter characters guarding the ladder so that the little goblins couldn't run up the ladder at me.
Yeah.
And I killed that guy pretty easily, and then once most of the goblins were dead, I brought the other fighters up to the rafters, and the rest of the fight took place entirely in the rafters, which was awesome. Like,
that must have been a tough fight still, though.
It was.
You had to do that a couple times.
It was hard. It took me a couple tries to figure out the strat.
Right. But every time not that I watched a whole combat sequence of it, but when I would walk by and you were doing that, I would stop and watch it for a while. Because it was just really cool to see that and to see how, oh yeah, with this video game, there are things that you can like visualize and account for so much more easily than with Theater of Mind or even with a 2D battle map or whatever you're normally using.
Yeah, and you can use like not just the terrain, but like you can create surfaces, which is when you could spray acid and then there's just acid on the ground, or like fire. You can shoot like braziers, whatever.
Yeah, not
shoot
braziers.
Those. Have them. Well, there's probably braziers in this game.
Probably not, actually.
No.
Anyway.
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
You create surfaces.
Yeah, create surfaces. You can interact with the environment. If you're fighting and there's water around and you use like lightning damage, it gets zappy. There's one in like the adamantine forge and you're fighting this adamantine golem. You can only damage it if it's superheated from lava. So like your characters are trying to keep the lava like in this forge while the golem is trying to turn off the lava.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot of our previous episode about alternate combat objectives that people should check out if they haven't already. Yeah.
So there are alternate combat objectives. Also, I think they did a pretty good job of balancing how powerful your characters are. With like a lot of the fights follow the one strong guy and many minions rule. Where there's like a bunch of tiny goblins and one big hobgoblin, for example.
Yeah.
Or like, this was one of my least favorite fights, but the arc or the one devil in Char's Gauntlet and then a bunch of Marigons. I didn't like that fight.
Yeah.
But
you saw
whatever.
The first like fight that I got into that I was like
over
my head was like
really
a couple
hard.
very strong wood woads and then like a bunch of mud mephits.
Yeah, ancient mud mephits that were summoning more mud
tons
mephits.
Of like little weak mud mephits. I definitely agree that the combat is great. I think my main point was, I saw different videos from different creators talking about how like why would anybody like play the VTT now or even want that?
Because you're still not playing your own campaign.
Exactly. I think it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was just...
It is still a video game, and it plays by video game logic the same way that D&D plays by D&D logic.
Sort of. So now here's where I think it's not a great like D&D experience, is that it is almost entirely, I don't want to say linear, but I guess... or maybe railroad is wrong. Maybe linear is the right term, where it's like there's just a set story to complete.
Yeah.
There's very few, if any, at least that I've counted so far.
But that's what I'm saying, though. That's video game logic.
Well, but look at like, Elder Scrolls games. I think those are a better D&D experience than Baldur's Gate
let me point out, when you were playing Skyrim, you were constantly complaining that the characters, the NPCs, didn't react realistically to you making certain choices, and that they would instantly forget if you murdered someone, and you were like, why am I not being thrown in jail?
Yeah.
Where in this game, if you murder someone,
people better,
there's real consequences.
But there's no world to explore. It's open world game, and everywhere you go is part of the quest.
Yeah, I get that part.
And something I didn't even notice until it randomly came up when I was talking about it yesterday.
There are some things that you haven't witnessed yet that is like you don't like. There are random caves and stuff that you can go into.
Okay, but I would say there's like, again, at least I have not experienced this yet. No truly like random encounter. No like wandering monsters.
Yeah, I pointed that out yesterday.
So I guess if there are caves that I haven't found or whatever, then that's where those things are. But exploring the world, you're not going to randomly come across anything that you're not supposed to as part of the campaign.
Yeah, that is definitely true.
All in all, great game. I'm having lots of fun with it. But I do think like the amount to which people are comparing it to D&D is way exaggerated. Like it's not all the, it's just the D&D combat. And frankly, it's like when I enter combat, like I'm playing it on the, quote unquote easy mode. What's it called? Explorer. Because like I want to breeze through the combats, especially if I'm playing this video game version where, yes, things are calculated more easily. But then when they add these extra complications of like things you can do, which make it exciting in some ways, it also can like slow things down. Maybe because I'm coming at it from a D&D perspective, I think like I'm more conscious of it, like of how long the fights take. But
I've also noticed some like performance issues where sometimes when an enemy does their turn, it takes like up to a minute to actually resolve and end that NPC's turn. Like they'll do all their stuff and then you'll just be waiting for like a minute.
Oh, I don't think I've had that happen.
Yeah, I guess it's maybe some of the bigger fights.
Yeah.
Like I get it, like when there's 10 creatures in a fight, like it might be slow. But it's more than I would expect it to, and I hope that it gets fixed with some updates. But yeah, and I don't know if that's a problem in PC or if it's just PS5.
So, tell us about your character.
Oh yeah, so I'm playing a character that is very dear to me.
Yeah.
One that I played as as a player character, and then I love her so much that I adapted her into an NPC, not in like a DMPC kind of way, but like I changed her backstory a lot to make her work better as an NPC, where she's kind of an asshole. She's got problems. Problems that only the characters can solve for her, which really is what is a mark of a good NPC. But now I'm playing her also as a Baldur's Gate character.
Yeah.
Fortune Faceseeker, a multi-class rogue warlock. And like, this is where it's like, this is not D&D, because my character has her own backstory, right?
Yeah, duh.
And she would say certain things in certain situations that are just obviously not represented in the dialogue, because how could they possibly account for that?
4 or 5 choices. And I will say, again, like we already touched on this, the conversations I think are handled very well.
Yeah.
I can usually find there's like a response, and again, only out of 4 or 5 things, that's very close to like what I'm thinking in my head as the NPC's talking before it shows me my options. Like usually one of those options ends up being really close to what I was like going to say anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not perfect, but yeah.
Yeah. But let me say, this character is one that's not really interested in romance or sex or anything like that. She just doesn't really care about it. But
what?
But my resolve to play the character was not strong enough to stand against the Wizard of Waterdeep, Gale.
Oh, Gale.
My beloved Gale. Who, like, so going into this game, I was like, how good could the romance possibly be? Like, I was just thinking, like...
And I think we should step back for people who, I don't know, probably everybody who's listening to this is playing this game. But I have never played a video game where the NPCs are constantly flirting with you and each other.
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, I played Witcher.
Almost.
I played Witcher, where that happens, and there's sex in Witcher.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking, it's probably just like that. But no, there's actually, like, flirting, romance, like, kind of deep conversations with these other characters.
Yeah, about their backstories.
That makes them, like, deep. Like, they're the characters have depth.
Thought out, dynamic characters.
And
all of them have their own kind of quests.
So, and, like, I do really like romance as a genre, but it's so hard to find well-written romance.
Yeah.
But here it is in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, they sure
where,
did it.
Like, the first thing with Gale is him just, like, showing you the weave. It's just, like, this guy showing you something that he really cares about and sharing it with you. And I'm like, okay. Like, I wasn't planning on doing, like, really, but I was like, I'm obsessed with this wizard.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, yesterday, so pretty much more than half of our D&D group is also playing this game. So yesterday we had a session, and it came up how, like, one of our fellow players was saying how, like, he's in the middle of trying to romance Shadowheart.
Yeah, he says that's the most basic cisgender option.
Right. And I said, well, it's like she's the only
normal
human woman in the...
half-elf.
Oh, she's a half-elf even.
She's a half-elf.
Okay, I didn't even know that. In the party, whatever. And similarly, Gale is like, we know, because there's also Will.
So I think the options for men are much more appealing than the options of women. Because, like,
Who do we got?
You got Lae'zel, who hates you and everybody around her.
Is like a weird alien lady.
And is a weird alien. Shadowheart, half-elf, like...
conventionally attractive.
Conventionally attractive. That's what I'm looking for. Conventionally attractive, warms up to you very quickly. Yeah. Not very quickly, but like...
But like Lae'zel's actively
Lae'zel
on
you the whole time. Like, I even stopped like engaging with her. I didn't put her in my party anymore. Shadowheart I keep in my party because my character wants to be friends with her.
Yeah.
And then you do have Karlach, who... I do really like Karlach, and I say if I had met Karlach before having that romance scene with Gale, I would have gone for Karlach instead. Oh. Even though you can't touch her for, like, until toward the end of Act
she's,
2
like,
because she's on
constantly
fire all the
burning,
time.
basically. Yeah.
But for the men, you've got
Yeah, you
sexy
got-
vampire,
Yeah.
sexy fighter, sexy wizard.
Yeah, and they're all very like humanoid. I guess Asterion is a full elf, maybe.
Asterion, I think, is an elf, but
He's
he's
either an elf
also
or
a
a half-elf.
vampire.
Oh,
so.
I think it's an elf because I think his quest is called the
Pale Elf. Yeah, so he's an elf, but also a vampire. Will
yeah.
does actually become a devil,
Oh yeah.
but he's still
Spoilers.
sexy. He's still sexy as a devil.
Yeah.
And then Gale is just like Gale the whole time.
Yeah, and then I think honestly, like, I feel like Gale is the most normal though, because Will is so over the top, like kind of paladin-esque, like I'm the good guy.
A warlock.
Even though he's a
all
warlock,
like fuck
he's
devils,
very
but
much-
yet also
Yeah, he's
I
very
don't
much
know-
like idealistic.
I can't really like. I don't know why he made that deal yet, but like
Yeah.
it's, to me at this point in the
right.
story, it's a little hypocritical.
Yeah, but it's like his personality is his interests.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
His whole thing is about being the blade of the frontier.
Right. And then Asterion is like way too
little
pushy.
slutty,
Yeah.
slutty little vampire elf.
And he also like tries to kill. He's tried to kill me the first time I met him. I don't know how it works for everyone else. And then like the first night, long rested, tried to bite me.
The
He's a
first night
vampire.
he tried to bite you.
Yeah.
Took him a while to try to bite me. I guess he
Yeah.
likes you more.
And anyway, and then Gale is just like pretty much a cool guy.
Yeah.
So it's
He's
like
cool and
he's
chill.
just normal
When
dude.
I first started, I hated Asterion.
Oh,
I thought
yeah,
he was
yeah, yeah.
so cringe.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand his dialogue. But
He's so full of himself. He's like
but
super vain.
since
Yeah.
I did start talking to him more and like learning more about his
Right.
story, he's grown on me. I think of the romance options, Asterion would be the one that this character I'm playing would actually be interested in because they have a lot in common.
Mm.
But also he wants to like take over the cult that you're fighting to like have absolute power to crush his vampire sire or whatever.
Oh.
So that's pretty evil. But now I'm kind of thinking I want to do an evil playthrough as well. I'd probably romance Asterion because playing as an evil character would make every other character except Asterion and maybe Lizelle or
yeah.
Shadowheart hate you. So
Yeah, and I guess that's another interesting aspect of the game we haven't talked about yet with the NPCs. Like, they don't actually mention alignments at all, I don't think. But with many of your NPC interactions, and not even just with the party, but with other people, it'll say Asterion approves or disapproves or whatever. When your other people are with you, like you're changing how they think about you based on the things that you say, like the options that you choose in these conversations. And I think that's really cool.
in the original Baldur's Gate games, you did actually choose an alignment for your character. But I think that was more because back in second edition days or
Yeah.
AD&D, it actually mattered.
Yeah.
Because certain class options were
Yeah,
restricted
it
to
was
certain
more limited.
alignments. Speaking of original Baldur's Gate, Jaheira, who's one of your party options in the original game, is in Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
But,
and I was like, that's so cool.
yeah, I bet there's more
'Cause
callbacks and stuff.
I think Minsk and Boo are probably in it.
They
'cause, like,
are in it
I
somewhere,
remember
'cause
seeing the
that's-
hamster.
Yeah, that's Matt Mercer voice.
Really?
Minsk, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's all I don't know
Can't
where
wait
he's
to
at.
meet him
I didn't know
then.
he did. Yeah.
But yeah, I like Jaheira. I always had her in my party. Didn't really see her working with the Harpers, so that was interesting. But
Is that what she used to be, a Harper or something?
she, or maybe she is a Harper? No, I thought she was part of the Emerald Enclave in the original. I don't know.
Leave a comment below if you know what Jaheira's deal is.
Is she a Harper or Emerald Enclave?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else in particular about like the combat. 'Cause I know that was like a big topic, at least in the D&D YouTube sphere of the discussion about this game. Like things that like rules that are different, for example.
Yeah.
I guess like one of the big ones is like potions are bonus actions officially in this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a video game. If they were actions, it just wouldn't be.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work.
Well, and that's why many people house rule that it's a bonus action to drink them.
Yeah.
But we made that whole video about how
How
you can't really
actually
do it in
work.
6 seconds.
There's also Revivify, for example, the spell. No material component. Like you don't have to have
no
gemstones worth a
diamonds
certain
or-
amount.
Wow.
And so, I mean, usually if a character dies in combat, I just like restart.
Oh, yeah. You can just go back to a save. Yeah. Don't have that in D&D.
Yeah, but yeah, you don't have that in D&D. And that's pretty much the only time that I'll, like, restart something, is if it results in a death. I don't, like, save scum my rolls in conversations.
Yeah.
Or even, like, picking traps or locks. But I am playing Rogue.
Right.
And that, along with always having Shadowheart in my party for guidance, and pretty much my inspiration bar is almost always full. Like, at any given time, you can have 4 inspirations.
Oh. I don't even know what that is yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll have to check that out.
I don't know if you've seen
I
it.
know it came up at some point because I used it. It was like I could re-roll.
Yeah, it lets you reroll, but only in, like dialogue or...
I think I was, like, picking a lock or something. So, yeah.
But your character can be inspired. All of your NPCs can be inspired by just certain things that you do. And it's pretty easy to get that just by playing the game. Like, you really don't have to go out of your way to get inspiration. So I think that's cool, too.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned just, like, it always, like, as long as that one character's in your party, it just automatically adds guidance to your roll.
Well,
like,
you choose to add it or not.
Oh,
but
you
it's
choose
like,
to turn it on?
It's Shadowheart.
Right.
But, like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, and that's, like, a simple thing where, like, people complain about that in actual D&D.
Yeah.
But
like,
it's
as a
like,
player, I don't take the guidance cantrip because I don't like doing it in D&D because I'm playing with other people. And this might be a controversial opinion.
Oh, boy.
But I feel like using guidance on someone all the time is kind of like making their success yours. Like, it's intervening into every other character's action to be like, I'm going to do this thing to make you succeed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it feels to me.
I guess it's, it's only a D4, so it's like only if the roll is close.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I feel like frequent guidance users, it's like you're not even there. You're not participating in the conversation. You're not there picking the lock.
Yeah.
Like, are you just always standing next to someone at all times?
Because I forget, is it a touch spell supposed to be?
I think it's touch, and it's like, does the NPC like not even see you casting a spell on someone?
Like in a conversation or something?
Yeah,
that's a good point.
So, in-game D&D, not a fan of guidance. Baldur's Gate, use it constantly. I never don't use it because it's just me playing. All the characters are me. So
yeah, they'll have to make sure I have it on because I don't know actually if prepared is a spell.
You have to hit like square. It's a cantrip, so you just have to hit like square and then select it. And well, we don't have to discuss the mechanics right now, but yeah.
I'm trying to like. Is there anything else about the story or anything before we go to break?
I feel like I don't really know enough about the story yet to like say much. I like it so far, but this is one of the very few times where I actually have no idea where it's going. I have not yet even identified what type of creature the final boss is going to be.
Oh.
Usually I would have by now.
Predict that instantly.
I think it could be an elder brain, but I'm not sure. I don't even know, is the absolute actually the main villain? Or is the absolute only the villain of Acts 1 and 2, but is the puppet of something greater than that? So, we'll see.
We'll see. After this break. Not really, we're not going to spoil it after the break. But we're going to take a little break and then come back and answer some questions and hear your stories about this game. Woo.
None of you guys better be romancing my Gale.
And now it's time for a random encounter where we roll to read your stories and questions, generally about this topic, and the person who wrote our favorite story or question takes home some loot. In this case, some cool dice that reminded me of Mind Flayers. Because there's Mind Flayers in this game.
Yeah, there's Mind Flayers.
That didn't actually come up much, I don't think, in the first half. Okay. Go ahead and roll.
6.
Is from Camel X. I have played a very small amount of Baldur's Gate 3. Same. But I have been playing it with one of my good friends. Okay. We are both barbarians. He is a half-orc, and I am a red dragonborn. We both discovered that we could play the game entirely naked. So we have decided to roleplay as 2 very confused and angry naked men, killing everyone and everything that we believe our characters just wouldn't understand. That includes anything magical, anything that's not humanoid, And of course, anything or anyone that threatens us in any way. It's been one of the best RPG experiences in my lifetime.
That does sound really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking, okay, take a brief aside from the questions, because I realized I didn't discuss my character at all.
Oh, yeah.
I'm playing Braum, who is my first character ever. But of course, when I played him for the first time, it was in a game where we didn't know the rules of like D&D at all, and we all made up our own classes, like with the GM. And my class at the time was probably most closely aligned to a wizard, because I would like learn spells, but from kind of like nature. So in this game, I chose to play a druid. But in actual D&D, I really like playing fighters and barbarians because they're just gonna hit more often usually. Like you can focus your stats without it feeling like min-maxing, because it's like you only really have to worry about the one thing. So if I ever do a second playthrough, which I kind of doubt I ever will, because like I don't know if I'll ever even get through the first playthrough. It's a whole lot of game. A barbarian would be a lot of fun. So that sounds really awesome.
Who is Braum gonna romance though?
Oh, Shadowheart probably.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Why not Karlach?
Yeah, I mean, Karlach's like easily the second option, but like not Lae'zel.
Okay.
And probably no dudes. So, anyway.
4.
Hall of Wonder. I see lots of people trying to figure out how to improve as a DM from playing this game, but I'm wondering how you are learning to be a better player. So many abilities in D&D I didn't even know existed or I thought were totally different, and this game is just presenting combat, actions, and some obscure abilities in a way that I understand really well, and I'm utilizing a lot of things I totally forget are on my character sheet and being way better about using class resources way more effectively and quickly now that I can try them out on my own in a video game without weighing down a real D&D party with my experimentation.
So to be fair, a lot of the things in this game are different than the actual rules of D&D.
True.
So the way that you're seeing them in the game, that's not necessarily how it plays in D&D.
I would say...
For example, jumping is a bonus action. Why?
Like in the game?
Yeah. Why is jumping a bonus action?
Oh, yeah, it should just be part of your movement.
It's just part of movement.
But probably because you can go farther in this game, I think.
You have the same amount of movement speed.
Yeah, but you can jump farther, I'm saying.
Oh, maybe.
You can easily jump farther and higher in this than based on your strength.
But also, like, some spells are totally different.
We talked about potions.
Yeah, like shoving also.
Right. Well, and those are things like, probably the first week after this game came out, there was a video on YouTube of a guy who, I guess it was a group of people playing together. Because it was like 3 or 4 like halfling barbarians, and all they did was like throw each other and throw enemies and like shove things. It's this goofy like smash cut video, and they're just pretty much like the previous comment, just obliterating everything. So yeah, shoving, jump, like all these moves are kind of more powerful than they are in the actual game.
But I also remember when I learned about like disengage, dodge, and dash, because my original DM didn't tell us about those things. We didn't know we could do that.
Huh.
So I get where you're coming from about like seeing all these things that you weren't even aware of. That like even if they're run differently in D&D, they're still there.
Yeah.
So now you're at least aware of these actions that may work differently than you thought when you're actually playing.
Yeah.
But like now you know about
exposure to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like just playing with a different GM.
Yeah.
You know, who's like running the game differently, and you learn more stuff, or playing a different RPG, you're just going to learn more ways to do things. And I'll add one thing I saw in a video on YouTube was somebody talking about how, I haven't run into this, but I guess how some enemies that are casters will use silence pretty frequently or something to like make sure, so like your casters can't do anything. Or maybe it was them saying as a player they were doing that on enemies. But regardless, it's like that's a spell I've never seen anybody use in D&D. Like once or twice in us playing D&D at a table, I've seen people use silence. But in a game like this, where again I don't know if it's an action to cast or however it works, but you could see it being used like more readily in a video game when you're coming up against spellcasters.
Yeah, it is more tactical.
Yeah, exactly.
That way. Like, I have the idea to use, because my character is a rogue warlock with Devil's Sight.
Okay.
So I had the idea to use darkness to, like, just constantly get sneak attacks.
Yeah.
But the enemies are pretty much always in a position where they can just move out of it. So I'm like, is it really worth it?
Yeah.
But at the same time, enemies would constantly use that on me if they could. So maybe I should actually do it.
Could be worth a try.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one. 9.
From the same person, Hall of Wonder. In a 4-player multi-campaign of BG3 with my friends, 2 of us ran into Asterion on the beach and tried to pickpocket him. This triggered a battle, and we had to knock him out. I looted him and pressed loot all, and to our surprise, because he is one of the companion characters, his inventory includes all of his clothes. So he was lying on the road, extremely naked, and my friend got to the side of him, and she used the shove action to push his sleeping body in the ditch beside the bushes. An absolutely amazing scene to behold. We left him and ran, and another player found him awake and perfectly comfortable with his body. And he was recruited and lived in our camp, but we couldn't return his clothes to him until we logged off because our party was full of players. Some very D&D feeling moments in this game spawn from misclicks or misunderstanding of the rules, like that loot all moment, and it adds a lot to the unplannable fun of the role-playing.
This is objectively the correct way to meet Asterion. Just
Just
knock
beat
him
him
out,
up.
take everything he has,
everything,
and leave
throw
him in a ditch.
ditch.
I wish I had done that.
Yeah. But you know what? Yeah, like that's shocking. I didn't even know. Like that stuff I definitely didn't know you could do in this game.
Yeah, there's even
And
underwear.
It's not like something that my characters are tend to want to do in actual D&D, but it's like it's something that I wouldn't predict you could do in this game. Like again, just to go back to my initial point of like this not being D&D, like there's still, you know, like the whole game you're limited, like, oh, you can't go past like the thick part of the outline on the map when like you can clearly see there's stuff that you could just like climb or even run into if it's water or swim or whatever. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you still can't do, but it's neat that there are some little moments like this that you can still have. All right, we can roll again.
Oh, there is another like weird encounter that you can have
Mm-hmm.
where you find like a spider carcass, like a giant spider carcass. Your 3 options to interact with that carcass are take a long sniff, give it a lick, or investigate it.
Wow. Well, and it actually like meeting Gale, slap hand, like slap the hand or whatever that's reaching out of the portal.
Oh yeah, and then in
Yeah.
like his weave scene, it's like
Oh.
you can picture yourself like doing something, and it's like kiss him, hold his hand, or like punch him in the stomach.
Good for these developers. Okay.
8.
From Ron Wingrove. A lot of reviews have got caught up in the video game aspects or even just talk about how everyone is bisexual and can't get over the adult content. But what does Grace think about it from a TTRPG gamer's perspective? How close is it to an actual D&D session? Does it scratch the TTRPG itch? What about a computer as DM? Do you still feel like you have free choices? Personally, this last question was a real sticking point. Although, yes, you as a player did have choices insofar as where to go and when, most of the plots feel more like railroads. It didn't seem to matter much what I did or what I said. Companions still became companions unless you killed them, and the plot points just ticked on regardless.
I mean, the plot points are going to take on, but they're going to take on differently depending on the choices that you make.
Right.
Like in the Shadowlands, which is as far as I've progressed at this point, you can lift the curse or you cannot. Like you can save this land or you cannot. I wonder, I'm not sure about this, but can you let the Rite of Thorns be completed at the Emerald Grove?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Yeah?
you can side with her.
You
Yeah,
can
I'm pretty positive.
side with the Drow in the Goblin Fortress and slaughter everyone in the Emerald Grove. Like
Yeah.
you can.
So that's I mean, you made the point.
Yeah.
I think it's like, yeah, these plots do progress, but yeah, like
it's
you
not
said,
like
your
no matter
choices-
what,
it's not
you'll
the
have
same
the same
outcome.
outcome. Like dialogue options, yeah, maybe, but it's kind of the same thing as like as a DM. Like if someone says something offensive to an NPC, I might have them laugh it off just because this is an important NPC and they have a quest to deliver.
Yeah.
Maybe just because I play video games a lot, I don't necessarily feel like railroaded by it.
Well, I think how I said I felt railroaded is like everywhere you go is just part of the quest.
Yeah.
So like, but yeah, I agree. It's like your choices still matter. It's just like you're playing a module. Like there's an end goal, you know, and there are different ways that these things can end up. but you are certainly in a module. Like, you're playing the campaign.
Yeah, and I would say that it does scratch the TTRPG itch. I think it scratches it better than the original Baldur's Gate games. Maybe just because I didn't understand the mechanics in the original Baldur's Gate games.
Like, RPG itch, I'd say yes. But, like, the tabletop role-playing game itch, like playing Baldur's Gate 3, being as fun or as, like, fitting as an actual tabletop game experience with our friends, not even close for me.
I might do it more if you actually played with your friends. Because you can't.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of these people are.
Yeah, that's interesting because I haven't really even played, like, any kind of co-op video games since before I played D&D.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about. But
might
definitely,
be
as a
finally getting that PS
you would have
Plus
like the social experience then, I guess.
Yeah. Like, you could have a campaign with, like, Jerry and Dan.
Yeah, we
just
could
like
be playing the same
three
game.
of you could all play the same game together. I think that would be a lot of fun for you.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fun. And
for me, I guess it does just because I get to make a character build.
Yeah.
And I like doing that.
What about as a computer SDM?
Computer SDM. I feel like this is as good as it's ever going to get for computer SDM. But I don't think a computer is ever going to write a plot, including romance subplots.
I don't know.
As well as this was written.
Well, yeah, I think it'll... I don't know. It's so hard to say because, like, AI stuff is always so surprising, honestly. I think we're at least 5 years away from it.
I think computer SDM for combat, like, it's there. Like, it does all the calculations for you.
Yeah, and it's,
That's
deciding
great.
where the enemies are moving and everything. Yeah. And it's obviously doing that just based on how your party of characters are moving around that environment. So I think it does a really good job.
Yeah, if somebody made, like, a virtual tabletop like this where you could turn on, like, enemy tactics and just let it run the battle for you.
Oh, so you as the GM, like, didn't have to worry about that.
But then I would want it to be toggled.
Sure.
So that if I wanted to take full control of the enemies, I could. Or, like, even just one particular that got hit with a vicious mockery and now they're just going to spend all their resources killing a bard.
If the D&D VTT was like, okay, let's scrap what we've been making. Larian, give us all your... I don't know how anything about game dev works. But, like, if they were able to just take, like, the engine of how combat runs in Baldur's Gate, but, like you're saying, where basically on each enemy's turn, it would, like, immediately, on the DM screen, you'd see, like, the automatic thing that it's suggesting, and then, like, you'd be able to choose, something else if you want.
That'd be so sweet, because running combat is one of the most exhausting things about the game for me.
Yeah, and especially when you're the one GM running, how many characters in a battle. So
yeah,
it can be overwhelming. That would be cool. Yeah, there are things about Baldur's Gate that made me realize, like, yeah, D&D, like, being worried about a company, like, basically the root cause of the OGL, allegedly, was, like, from Wizards of the Coast's own mouth, was like, hey, we're worried about other companies, using the OGL to make, like, D&D video games that would be, close to a D&D experience. And, of course, Baldur's Gate was licensed, like, they're using a lot of intellectual property. But if a company would just use the OGL, the combat would be the same, right? Yeah. If it was just a good enough studio,
you could make a game just
use
as
all
good
the spells
as
in the
this
SRD.
with OGL.
Yeah. So it's like, but as long as the studio...
It still wouldn't be D&D. Like,
right.
it would not be the same.
But it's like, if the combat were the same, like, and I guess as long as the writing were as good, the characters, whatever, it wouldn't have to be officially D&D, but it could still, scratch the D&D itch. This game is, close to a D&D experience for lots and lots and lots of people. And another studio could have done this without D&D knowing about, like, official D&D knowing about it, profiting from it, whatever. And so, yeah, I do think they were kind of right to be worried about it.
One.
From Crutonium. Like a crouton, but an element. Just started playing the game this morning, and so far I've fallen in love with the characters. I wasn't expecting the opportunity to interact with the characters during a long rest, but I think it's a genius move on the dev team's part. It really gives those vibes of role-playing with other characters in downtime. One small critique I had was of how quickly the other characters joined the group. Besides the two that you meet in the beginning, the rest just seem to say, Tadpole? All right, let's go. Better stay together, right? It has the feel of players not having a reason to stick together in the beginning besides being forced safety in numbers or we might make a pretty good team. That being said, I think at least having that connection/bond to the rest of the group early on was definitely the right move. Perhaps it could have been done a little better, in my own opinion. I'd love to hear counter-arguments, though.
There may be something a little insidious about how all the characters bond together because of the tadpole, when you think about it.
Oh, that is an interesting thought.
Is the
Are
tadpole
they drawn together?
influencing our choices?
Yeah.
Or the choices of the NPCs?
Wow. That's actually like an amazing
join
point.
together.
And I don't know if that's a spoiler because you're farther in the game than I am.
It is not. This is just my actual thought.
Yeah. But it's like that is such a strong
because
case to be
this
made.
is how a cult can easily be formed for
Sure.
the absolute.
Yeah.
Is people want to be around these other people who also have the tadpoles because the tadpoles are making
Are
them feel
influencing
that
them.
way.
Yeah.
Also, your champion, quote unquote, who I do not trust,
Right.
supposedly saved you from falling out of this ship.
Oh, yeah. Somebody
Each of
did.
your fellow party members also has a champion.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
This is how we all ended up more or
Yeah.
less in the same location.
Well. I think that's enough to chew on for that one. Let's just roll
Yeah.
another. Yeah.
7?
That sounds new.
7. I have to say it with
Gusto.
certainty.
From Erdraw Ranger. My girlfriend and I are playing together, and she is an absolute gremlin in this game.
An absolute?
When you throw someone, they take damage and fall prone, and it takes 6 seconds to stand back up. You can still be thrown during this time, so she threw me repeatedly until my character outright died. In a last-ditch effort to stop her, I had Gale cast Grease to knock her over. She succeeded her save, but he failed against his own spell and fell over for 6 seconds, starting the whole process again.
So you're just doing PvP in this game?
Yep.
Wow.
That sounds fun, though.
Yeah.
There's Gale slipping and sliding around.
Slippery Gale.
Yep. Yeah, you can roll again.
5.
From Jordan W. My favorite story from Baldur's Gate 3 is being in Baldur's Gate. I was investigating some murders in the city and tracked down...
This seems like a spoiler because I haven't gotten this far yet.
Okay.
Skip to the anyway, my wild magic sorcerer part.
Okay, skipping spoilers for Grace. I mean, and me technically, but I care less because I'll never finish this game. My wild magic sorcerer cast a spell that went wild. It summoned a spike growth that stayed for a minute, non-concentration. So I dealt with the murderers and got to talk to the target. Well, before I could do that, the civilians around start going about their business. They, however, failed to notice spike growth, and walked through it and died. So naturally, Flaming Fists come to deal with this threat. Second fight ensues, with 3 Flaming Fists and 2 renegade civilians, so I had to drop them all. Yes, I could have turned on non-lethal, but felt they didn't deserve that mercy. So yeah, kind of took the wind out of my sail for playing the hero.
Yeah, so
Wow.
that is one of the things about it being a video game that, like, especially wild magic, like, the game isn't really thinking about something like that happening.
Yeah, no.
So they're not going to
the
make the
whole point.
NPCs avoid that area.
Wow. Yeah, that kind of stinks.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
it's
do-
just like
I do
accidentally
like-
hitting somebody in Skyrim or whatever. Or
Yeah, I do
Actually-
like how, like, your party members will go out of their way to avoid hazards, because that wasn't a thing in the original Baldur's Gate.
they would just walk right through stuff.
But, like, I guess they didn't apply that programming to NPCs.
All right. 3. From Alarm Clock Mug. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 yet, but I've heard fantastic things about it from others in my D&D group. Despite this, I do have a question that's answer tends to vary depending on whom I've asked. How, in your personal opinion, immersive is Baldur's Gate 3, and why do you think that? This can be taken from multiple perspectives, such as how close to D&D the game actually feels, the elements of the fantasy, and storyline.
I might be kind of a weird person to ask for this question because any video game I play, just like when I'm playing a game, I'm not paying attention to anything else around me. I 100% hyper focus on the game. So it's extremely immersive. It's so immersive to me.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess it's like, are there things in the game, like a couple things have come up that
Anything
break
that makes
the
me
immersion
go,
to you?
my immersion.
Exactly, yeah.
Yesterday when you were playing the radio at the same time I was playing the game.
I'm talking about things in the game.
Um,
Like, for example, my second session, when I was sneaking around this, like, hag's hut, and, like, one of my party members, like, stopped sneaking for a second, and then was seen, and then it, like, went into a cutscene where the hag was talking to them in a different location from where they were. It was like, okay, this, like, just doesn't make any sense with how I just approached the situation.
Yeah, that wasn't
like
really
that was
fair.
completely immersion
That
breaking.
is the one. There is this thing that happens when you're trying to get on an elevator, for example, and you'll get on, but some of the party members won't get on, and you'll try to like walk all the way to the edge of the elevator, and they just like won't get on it, and then you have to go and be each character at a time
to fit them on.
to fit them all on. But then while you're doing that, the other characters will move off the elevator. The same thing happens with jumping. Sometimes characters get stuck jumping, so you have to be that character to make them jump, but in that time the other characters jump back.
Yeah. So some things related to movement, probably.
That reminded me of another thing. I tried to get everyone on an elevator, but I missed Karlak. So I had to go back down. But Karlak was standing right where the elevator was going to land, so she got smushed and she died.
Wow. That sucks. And also, definitely immersion breaking.
Yeah.
Because obviously she would have gotten the frick out of the way.
Yes, obviously she would have moved.
Well. I guess we could say mostly very immersive.
But it's mostly
But
like
it's still a video game.
it's the programming that
Sure.
can break your immersion.
And for sharing our favorite story/question. This episode's loot winner is Erdraw Ranger and his gremlin girlfriend just killing each other by throwing each other around. Greased up Gale. You're
Greased
going
up
home
Gale.
with a cool set of only crits dice.
And you have to share it equally.
Yes, you must share this dice set. Okay. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and challenge that like button. To be eligible for loot and support this show, consider subscribing or joining Patreon through the links below. Patrons also get a private RSS link to listen through your favorite podcast platform and a new 5e supplement every month. Thank you for your support and keep building.
Stop building.
For my immersion.